Welcome to the Email Ignition podcast. I'm your host, Lucas, and this will be a hub for you to learn the science behind email deliverability so you will be able to turn your cold email campaigns into a hot selling machine. And this is our first ever episode, but I promise it will be a very special one. And I'll start this with a very important thought, which is sending cold emails. It's a really good strategy for sales, but there's a catch. Email service providers like Google and Outlook will keep surveilling every written word you send and also several other sneaky things. So if you do things that they disapprove, your email sales enterprise can stop working literally anytime. So how could you avoid this adversity? Well, there's no better way to find out than listening to Frank and Daniel. Frank Sondors is the co-founder and CEO of Salesforge, and he's known for applying unconventional tactics, integrating cold emails into AI-powered products. Daniel Shnaider is the CEO and co-founder of Warmy, and his insights are widely recognized for helping business to create effective warm-up campaigns. So you'll be able to have a clear direction on how to finally get reply rates that are 3 times or even 5 times better than what you are currently getting. So let's address the elephant in the room. How many emails should you send per day?
Typically, the whole industry, or most of the industry typically would say, okay, you should be sending about 50 emails per inbox or per mailbox per day. But according to you, Daniel, I believe you can send a lot more emails. Can you maybe elaborate maybe on this part, how you're able to achieve that, why, you're able to send more? Like what does it have to do with?
Yeah, so I think it's a myth that you can send only 50 emails per inbox per day. In general, the email provider can allow you to send much more, right? So in Gmail, you can send G Suite, you can send 2,000. If you have your own infrastructure, you can send as much as you want. You can show Google that you are a good sender. We have users sending millions a month, millions of emails a month. So how is it possible? When the user show that he's sending good emails, people interact with the emails, you can send more. Why you are limited to 50? You can send 200, 500, etc.
Okay, the industry standard of 50 emails per day is a myth. You can send much more as long as you warm up your list and send positive interactions. But how many emails should you send in a sequence?
What I'm trying to say, send just maximum 3 emails in a sequence. The reasoning of why you should send 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, essentially the probability of a reply after the third email is just typically too small to warrant essentially sending another email. You're better off using essentially the capacity of a mailbox to be sending out emails to other prospects. But the second reason, which is typically the much better reason why you should not send more than 3, and sometimes actually some people say it's even 2, is just to reduce the number of spam reports that you essentially get against the domain. Because I know that there's still companies out there that send like 10 emails in a sequence, and I just don't recommend doing that. You're definitely very high likely to be getting a lot more spam reports because of that, right?
And another interesting way to boosting your reply rates is optimizing the preview text of your emails.
But one of the other things naturally they make a decision on whether to open email or not is just looking at the preview text. And typically in the preview text, you'll always see things like, hi, Daniel. Hey, Daniel. Right? So it's always going to mention the first name of that individual. And what if you could write the email, or you could start an email in a very different way and say, do the same thing as actually we called emails, or maybe just start it very differently. And by doing so, actually, you're interrupting the pattern, and essentially you are potentially, there's more likelihood essentially the person maybe opening your email. So always think about optimizing your preview text.
Okay, that's cool. And what does open rates can tell about a cold email outreach campaign?
Why would you say, why someone should not track open rates? And maybe also if you have an argument why you should track open rates. So it would be very interesting to hear.
Yeah, open rates, it's a fake metric. Because actually right now, this email companies opens the emails for you before you even see it. A lot of things. I mean, some of the time people see the email, but never downloaded this pixel. So it's a fake metric. What I would go after is emails. It's a tool to achieve something. So this is what I would measure finally. I mean, the reply rate or the demo rate or something, the open rate, either way, it's a fake number.
It's a fake metric. Much like impression rates, they won't tell you much. So it will be much better for you to disable open tracking.
You need to disable open tracking. They ask you why. And that's because, trackers, can harm your deliverability. That's kind of one thing. But the other thing, actually, the open these these pixels, essentially these invisible images that you typically insert, depending on who you send to. Let's say you're sending to an Outlook account or a Gmail account. Actually, it triggers differently. It fires differently, that pixel. And hence, typically, when you send emails more to startups then you would typically always see much higher open rates versus, let's say, going after enterprise companies that have very strict email security policies in place, and they also have Outlook, where typically sending to Outlook accounts, you always have typically lower open rates. If you are just running essentially brand new campaigns, when you are crafting a new copy, essentially, you want to make sure you are sort of pasting that into a tool like Warming, etc., just to check whether there are any sort of spam words, any words that could essentially trigger spam filters. You also want to check how many links you have, etc. So don't bomb essentially your copy with unnecessary stuff. And essentially, the more sort of simple you keep it, the fewer the links, the better the readability, typically the better results you would have. So I will say, when it comes to how long should be my emails. Interesting thing I found out just from running millions of emails in my life, and also looking at our customers, is that typically when you're targeting folks in the US or in the UK, you want to keep it sort of short and snappy. And typically I would say maximum 50 words. Like write like a CEO would write, right? You're very busy, you don't have much time. Right, just maximum of 50 words and kind of constrain yourself, kind of try and get to that level. Really double down on the pain of why the hell you're reaching out to me. What is the pain that you can solve for me? And you don't necessarily have to talk about the solution that you're selling in that first email. That could be the second actually email. And some of the case studies maybe, or some of the proof points that you'll maybe want to outline. But in the first email, just tell me why the hell you're reaching out, and what is the pain, what is the problem you can help me with.
And what about images, links, and HTML inside your email? Does that hurt your deliverability?
So no links, no images in the first email, but yes, in the follow-ups, videos, GIFs. And essentially you can craft what I call programmatically unique sort of memes, GIFs, etc. to your prospects. Because the goal, just generally that you have in sales and the marketing, is to educate your audience, but also to entertain them also along the way. But so you may be talking about a problem in the email that you're trying to solve, but there's no response. And then, you can make somebody's day. So you could brighten up essentially somebody's day by just sending a funny GIF or funny meme, etc. So that can also trigger people. And then it really depends on the audience, really. So if you're going after, lawyers, I would probably not do that. But if you're in my case, if you're going after salespeople or marketing people, I would probably do that, right? So, but it has to be something that's maybe a slightly bit more funny, super cool stuff. And it's just, another way of how can you actually drive more responses. But again, I would not have this as my first email. I would have this as my second email, where you're just kind of chasing up, and it can easily increase your reply rates.
Plain text is always the best for warm-up, but images, links, and memes are the best ones for getting better reply rate inside your sales pipeline. And there's also another thing that's crucial. The language matters.
And it's very important when you start interacting, and we saw a significant difference when you do these interactions in the topic and in the language. So we saw a difference when you do the warm-up in the language that you're about to send the emails, versus let's say you warmed up in English, but then you send the content on French or other language.
Wow, a lot of valuable insights about cold emails from Frank Sondors, and also really helpful tactics about email warm-up from Daniel. So it's been a pleasure for having both of your brains here in the podcast for this first episode. And make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episodes inside the Email Ignition podcast. Bye.